Welcome to the Going North podcast, where we will deliver you tips and techniques to advance yourself and anything you decide to do in life. I am your host, Dom Brightmon, and every Thursday I will interview authors, especially self-published ones from various walks of life, who will deliver you information and inspiration to help you charge forward. On a quick side note, be sure to check out my book, Going North, on Amazon.com. It's available on ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Now let's get on with the show. And in today's episode of the Going North podcast, we have, you guessed it, another author, but not just any author. This gentleman right here is also a motivational speaker who has something every Friday that will kick you out of your boots and make you put on some Nikes to go and charge forward with his happy hour program live on Facebook.com. And he is also a motivational speaker that is taking Baltimore by storm with the youth and is looking to go national, if not international, worldwide, with not only his inspirational message, but with his dapper bow ties. And we have none other than the wonderful Rashad Bowtie Mills. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I am blessed. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I'm just blessed. I feel good. I'm super excited about this opportunity. And I know what always happens is somebody's going to be positively impacted simply by listening to this. So I'm excited, man. I'm ready to go. I've been ready since last week.
My man. This man lives the mantra of not only getting ready, but staying ready. I love it.
I like that. Yeah, when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
That's right. I think it was 2016 we first met. I think it was back at Morgan State Toastmasters, right?
I think it was. As a matter of fact, it was. We met at Morgan State Toastmasters, and I think it was Morgan State Toastmasters, and I think I was actually one of the test speakers at a MSU Toastmasters. Actually, no, it was a different event through Toastmasters. I was actually one of the test speakers, and I think through that opportunity, you and I had a really good chance to connect and kind of talk a little bit more than I kind of watch, the work that you're doing from afar. Obviously, you're watching the work that I'm doing, so it's always good. It makes me feel great when I have the opportunity to just connect with like-minded people and be able to support each other. So, yeah, I think it was 2016 when we met.
Yeah, man, a sweet year indeed. I believe the speech that night was Vendor of Our Souls, right?
Yes, you have an excellent memory. Yes, vendor of your souls. Every day you wake up, you were selling. You were selling either to the good or to the bad. So you are a vendor of your soul. You were selling every day to somebody.
That's right. And if you want to hear more about that speech, make sure you're not only tuning in for his Friday happy hours, but contact him for some good old speaking engagements. So tell us a bit about yourself beyond the introduction and fill in the cavities I may have missed.
Oh, wow. So let me give it to you in the very short version. Rashad Bowtie Mills. Currently right now I am a motivational speaker. I am speaking right here in the DMV, Baltimore, Washington, and Virginia, looking to expand my brand. As you mentioned, across the country, certainly one day internationally. Freely give you out my number, 410-948-0654, or find me on any forms of social media, Rashad Bowtie Mills, so we can network. But I am a motivational speaker, also a licensed mental health therapist. And as Dominic mentioned, every Friday I do a motivational piece called Happy Hour, and that is my way of just giving motivation to the masses. And the idea and the concept of happy hour actually stemmed from me being an alcoholic. So I battled alcoholism for quite some time. And when I started doing happy hour in 2016, I never realized the correlation between happy hour, just positive motivation every Friday at 5 a.m., as opposed to what I was doing to myself every Friday at 5 p.m., which is sort of the negative happy hour, being in somebody's bar. And then one day my mentor said, man, do you realize the connection between the two? And I said, no. And he said, literally, your happy hour, you have made the best out of a negative situation. And I said, wow, I never realized that. And this happy hour began to get more traction and more people started to see it. And people just started to say, hey, man, I want more of happy hour. I began to go into motivational speaking. keep in mind, when I graduated from Morgan State University in 2006, I graduated with a BA in broadcast journalism. So I've always had the desire and the ability, the God-given ability, to talk to people. I was a sports broadcaster in Oregon for 2 years, from 2006 to 2008. So to be able to get back on a platform where I can use my gift to help people, but in a positive way, it's incredible. Because, Dom, you know the story, but certainly for the people that are listening to the podcast, I want to let them know at one point when I was a sports broadcaster, I was just like completely arrogant. I mean, you would not have wanted to sit in the same area as me because the arrogance was just coming. The arrogance was stinking. It was like I was reeking of arrogance. And then through a series of, I was reeking of arrogance, man. And through a series of events, mainly losing that job. In my opinion, that was like my dream job at the time. I always wanted to be connected to sports, and I knew I didn't have the ability to play at that high level, but I can, talk about it. And to lose that job as a sports broadcaster, it was the most humbling experience in my life. And I lost that as a result of a DUI. So it was the most humbling experience in my life. And what I always promised myself, if I was given the opportunity to get back to what I love to do, to talk to people, to go out and be in the communities, to interact and work with young people, I promised myself that I would make sure that I'm using it to help people and not just help Rashad. And so I'm back, baby, and I'm back better than ever, and I'm back on a mission. My mission is to literally positively impact as many people as I can. I'm talking from, if I can get them at the age of 3, literally, you need to learn your ABCs, if I can get them at 3, all the way up and until that last day on earth, I'm excited about the opportunity, and that's my mission every single day. One of my daily affirmations I'll just share with you and everybody that's listening to this awesome podcast. One of my daily affirmations is I start off and I say, Rashad Bowtie Mills, doing the Lord's work, positively impacting lives. So that's my number one thing. That's my goal every day. Amen. Is to positively impact people. So that's kind of my story. This is where I'm at. Like I mentioned, I'm extremely on a mission to positively impact people in any way I can. As a person, I've dealt with my own mental health issues, depression, things of that nature. I am more than in love with the mental health field. Again, I am a licensed mental health therapist, and I work with young men who are currently detained on adult charges, and I provide mental health services to them. So that is another passion of mine. So I'm just excited. That's the word for the day. Excited.
And that's a good word for the day, to be excited. I mean, it's really great what you're doing now. It's where you get to the point where you get your dream job, and then you love it so much that it goes to your head, and then you end up losing your dream job, catch a DIY, and then things go south per se, and then you find a way to spin it around and just redirect your path into turn something that the devil meant for evil and turning it into something for good. And in a way, that moment just became just your newfound story. It became almost that tipping point where now you're actually doing things probably at the end of the day on a bigger scale than you were as a sports broadcaster.
And you know what? I'm super unbelievably grateful that you mentioned that, and you literally read my mouth. I don't know if you jumped into my head and sort of took my notes out, but you mentioned something. Yeah, it's like, wow, did he know I was going to say that? You mentioned something that is absolutely critical for me in the space where I'm at. You mentioned that something that was meant for evil, it turned around and it worked out for my good. And as a man of extremely high faith, in 1997, I was shot in the leg.
Oh, damn.
At the time I was, less than a model person, let's put it that way. And I was doing some things that I really had no business being involved in. And what actually transpired out of that, Dom, I'll tell you, is that when I got shot and I was able to recover, one day I looked down at my leg and I have this hideous scar. And I looked at the scar and I actually still have bullet fragments in my leg. And when I looked down at my leg, the Bible verse, Genesis 50:20, came to mind. And I literally, the next week, I went and got it tattooed literally right above, the gunshot wound. And that's what it says, is that you intended to harm me, but God did it for good, to accomplish the things that's being done now. the saving of many lives or the saving of many souls. And at that moment, that bullet was like, the enemy said, I'm going to take him out. But God meant it for good. And now that when I work with young people, that's like an instant source of connection because they understand, yeah, I did some of the things that you did, but, I changed and I wanted better for myself. I surrounded myself with better people, better environments, a better way of thinking. So now I'm a different person. But I still remember that 19-year-old, that was actually that 17-year-old that was shot in the alley. Sorry, a 19-year-old that was shot in the alley in one of the worst parts of West Baltimore because I was selling drugs. So a lot of times it's very important, even in our adult lives, we need to understand that when things happen, I always believe that God sends warning before destruction. That was a warning for me. That was a warning to Rashad to get yourself together. So when you mention that it was meant for harm, but it turns out to good, and as always, no matter what happens, I believe that there is a good element in it. Now, here's the trick. We must find it. And then that finding it is the difficulty. Because every day, not every day, but throughout the course of our lives, maybe it's some people, it feels like every day, weeks, months, certainly years, you're going to experience these things and you're going to have those moments. Why did this happen? And then the trick is to find out why it happened. And when you find out why it happened, you take that harmful situation and you make it into something good. I mean, you find, you were in hell. Find a heaven out of that hell because there's a heaven in every hell. And all the life experiences that I've had, being shot, losing a job in Oregon, having a DUI, being an addict, being addicted to alcohol, which is one of the hardest things that I ever had to wake up and say, look, dude, you're an addict. Literally, I was going to AA meetings where I had to stand up and say, my name is Rashad and I'm an alcoholic. Man, for somebody with a lot of pride, that's that is that's a challenge. That is a challenging situation, but I had to do it. But I said all that to say, whoever's listening to this podcast, I just want to encourage you that whatever you have been through, and whatever you have been through, whatever the worst moment in your life was, I just want you to find that situation and not find the worst in it, but find the best in it. And even to this day, as we're speaking right now, 17, there are things that still happen throughout the course of my life, but I am smart enough. Hopefully I'm wise enough now to say, oh, okay, this situation happened. This situation is motivating me more. I don't find the negative in everything like I used to. There's some tough times that happen throughout the course of all of our lives, but it's so critical that we find the positive in it.
That's true indeed. And it's really great that despite the mistakes in the background, you're able to turn it around for good. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking to turn their bad situation into good, or just to get in that mindset of, hey, I can find the good out of this? Where can they find the gold in the ground, per se, the sunken ground, the sunken place?
Wow. That's a good question. I like the way that you actually worded that. Find the good and the gold in the ground. There's gold in all of the ground. Now, for me personally, one of the major things that I did is I had to do a lot of soul searching. And we're not even talking that long ago. We're going back to 2014, where I went through a horrendous breakup that led me spending 2 days in a mental institution. Keep in mind, I'm a licensed mental health therapist. So understand understand how the mind plays games. And if you're in the Baltimore area, Sinai Hospital. I mean, I literally was in a psychiatric unit. So when I got out of that place and I went through literally a summer of, being anxious, being depressed, one of the things that I did that completely changed my life around, and I hope somebody's listening they're able to do the same as well, is I did a lot of soul searching. And when I say soul searching, I went through an incredible period of self-development. And that self-development, number one, it connected me to a higher power. And I'm not saying that you have to be spiritual or religious, but I connected to God again. So that was something that was critical for me. And connecting to Him, I began to understand that these things are happening for a reason. And when I understood that, I would literally say, God, show me why these things are happening. Help me to understand why these things are occurring in my life. And through that course of connecting with God and going through this period of self-development, I begin to look internally and say, Rashad, you have some issues. Now that you understand you have these issues, what steps are you going to take to correct it? So many times people, they want to get to a new place in their life, but they still want to carry the old baggage. The old baggage won't get you to that new destination because you're carrying old bags. You're carrying bags from a trip that's over. You've already been there and done that. That trip is over. You're carrying those same bags into a new trip. Once you go into a new trip, you got to pack new clothes because your destination is different. And I began to eliminate people in my life that didn't mean any good for me. I stopped drinking, which was a very difficult thing to do, but I stopped drinking. And I began to understand that I wanted better for my life. I began to see that there was more to life than what I was going through. And I think so many people have, when they are in periods of, whether it's depression, sadness, substance abuse, whatever it is, or they just want to get motivated. Sometimes, man, people look at life through a very myopic lens. Life is not what's in front of you. Life, it's some things that's way down there. And I begin to see, oh my, it's more than, working and paying bills. Life is such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. And that's sort of the connection to happy hour as well. I wrote a piece yesterday for a online newspaper, and I ended it with the happiest hour is in the hour that you're in. It's not something that always something else that we're shooting or we're striving for. The happy hour is where you're at right now. And my happy hour is when I wake up now, I'm happy. I'm happy. And before that, I wasn't happy at all. So I said all that to say, connecting something higher to yourself is where I started. And self-development, and then understand that you want more in life, and understanding that you want more, what are you willing to give up to get more?
That's true. I like what you said, the fact that you're packing and carrying old bags from a trip that's already passed.
It's already done.
Done.
The trip is already over. I mean, I see it, and I was a part of it. I would carry old bags trying to get to a new destination. No, you've already been to that trip. You've arrived, you've departed, you learned everything that you needed to know. Sometimes you got to leave that old baggage where it is, pack new bags for that new destination.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to cash in used plane tickets for the same trip, but at a different time. Like, that ain't gonna work.
It's not gonna work. It's not gonna get you to the place that you need to go. It just won't do it. It just won't do it. But oftentimes I know that, and even now in the good space that I'm in, and I sit back and I watch, I closely watch people, and I guess that's part of the therapist in me that just I can't shut it off. Even with my kids, it's like I have this therapist eye on all the time, and I'm watching, and I see people want to bring old baggage into the new trip. People want to create something new, but it's old habits that continually kind of come back in, and even with me now, but I'm aware of it. I don't have all good days, and I think, Dom, sometimes people, they'll inbox me or contact me through social media. Say, man, you always in a great mood. Do you have days like that all the time? And I said, no, I'm going to be honest. No, just because I'm a motivational speaker, I don't always have great days. But I am cognizant of, if I'm having a bad day, what was it? Was it a lesson to be learned for whatever happened? And I try to move on. So it's just being aware. Part of that is like self-awareness, which is critical.
Yeah, it's very critical indeed, especially when you get lost in the bill cycle of, hey, I got to get up, I got to go to work, got to go to this job I hate, got to go to this job I somewhat hate, and pay these bills, not just Clinton, but you got to pay all these bills that, and then you just get lost in that, and you never just give yourself that time for self-development, for that self-reflection, to actually just go inside yourself and try to actually find yourself again. It's really important that she said that and I noticed that's something that I got away from for a small part of my time this year, because when you go so hard and you push so hard just to try to make stuff work and try to make things happen, you tire yourself out because you don't give yourself the time to actually reflect. And it's just great that you just reminded folks, and even may have informed folks, like, hey, all days aren't going to be good, and you got to give time to yourself to develop yourself.
You know what? Again, it's like, man, I love talking to people who are like-minded and they have the same way of thinking. That's one of the things right now that I'm actually doing for myself, because I am literally grinding I'm grinding in every sense of the word, not only motivational speaking. I'm actually working on another mental health business in the community, and I'm grinding. But in this period of grinding, I have to constantly remind myself. I've been reminded by colleagues. I've been reminded by family members of late. Take some time to focus on your self-care. And sometimes we can get lost in trying to do so much that we don't do self-care. And I think that is very critical for people to understand, because, without you being healthy, mind, body, spirit, and soul, it really becomes difficult for you to be the best you that you can. So that is very, very critical that we do focus on self-care, and we do allow ourselves some time to say, hey, you know what, maybe I do need to sit down for an hour or two and not be lazy. I don't like the term lazy, but just recharge the battery. Because I know when we talk about motivation, and I've spoken to a lot of people, and, that's one of the things that they, I'm really motivated and I go hard, but, should I feel bad for taking a break? No, you shouldn't be. You should always listen to your body. You should go as hard as you can, but listen to your body as well. This past Monday, to be honest with you, it's strange to talk. We met through Toastmasters. This past Monday, I was actually going to the Morgan State University Toastmasters, taking a colleague of mine. She attends another Toastmasters, and I was going to take her. And I was literally so beat from running. I said, you know what? I am going to have to back out. And I went in the house, I ate, and I shut it down. And I woke up the next day refreshed, ready to go at it again. So self-care is unbelievably important.
Oh my gosh. We could probably finish off this whole podcast the next 30 minutes talking about self-care.
Yeah, that's a podcast in its own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Yeah, that's a podcast in its own. Trust me.
Yep, so you're also a licensed mental health professional, which is great because folks are going to need help these days with depression, especially because, like some folks that acquaintances with, some folks that even work with in the past, some of them are in a different place and they're in a place of depression because they weren't at a place where they used to be and things like that. So what advice would you give to someone who is currently depressed and folks who may want to go down the path of just being a mental health professional?
Well, I'll start with the second part of that question first. For people that are interested in the field of mental health, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think you have to come in with a full tank. When I say a full tank, not necessarily referring to energy. I think you have to come in with a full tank of being able to help people. And it just doesn't mean energy to understand what they have went through, what they have gone through. I think you have to be really, really understanding. I think mental health professionals, we look at life a little bit differently because we deal with it every day. So we view people's problems not maybe, well, why can't they just pick up and move on? What is depression? You don't have to be sad. Just get up and move on and everything will be okay. We understand, because we work with these people every day. And I think you just have to have a full tank and be receptive to learn, be receptive to meet people where they are. Your level may be a lot different from the people that you work with. So you have to be able to meet them where they are. You do have to be understanding. And again, it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of patience. And one of the things that I would encourage anybody that is going to enter the field of mental health as a professional to help somebody else, you have to be so aware not to take your clients' problems home. Because working with young people here in Baltimore, a city that had just been just devastated by violence for years and years and years, I don't watch the news anymore. And I don't watch the news intentionally because, I've worked with far too many people, young people in the last 2.5, 3 years that have been a victim of crime, whether they have been, the perpetrator or they've been the victim. They've been involved in that cycle so much, and I've worked with them directly. You develop relationships. You develop great rapport with these young people. So for people that are going to get into the field of mental health, that's one of the critical things. And as helpers in the helping profession, it's easy to take on somebody's problems or take their problems home with you or believe that you can change everybody. you're not going to be able to change everybody.
Nope.
It's just not structured that way. And so many times when people think, I'm a mental health professional, I want to help everybody, I'm going to save everybody in the world. It certainly sounds good, but is it realistic? Not at all. Not at all. And that's just not realistic, because I came into the field saying that, I am going to save everybody. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So that's one of the things that I think. But going to the first part of the question, people dealing with depression, man, it is a very, very real thing. And it's a very real thing in the sense of it can seem like it's debilitating when you don't want to get out. When I was going through it, I didn't want to get out of bed. And when I was home, I would jump into bed and I would put the covers over my head and I wanted to sleep. The number one thing that I want to encourage people that are listening to this podcast is that it will get better. Will it happen in weeks, months, for some people, a year and a half? I don't know. It will get better. And it will get better, and it starts with a belief, because a lot of people that are going through sadness and things of that nature, they don't believe it's not going to get any better. And when you don't believe things will improve for you, oftentimes you won't put out the necessary effort to make the changes. Those changes, whether you have to change your way of thinking, whether it includes, for a lot of people, being more active. That helps when you're going through depressive periods, to get out, to be more active. Whether it includes changing your surroundings that are causing you to be depressed, whether it's the people in your environment. For some people, I just encourage everybody that seek help. And I don't necessarily mean seek help from your next door neighbor or the person that, you're sitting on the train with. Seek help from a licensed professional. That's what they're there for. I actually had a therapist when I was going through, the worst period of my life. I had a therapist that I would see every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and it was the best time of my life to sit and listen, or to sit and have somebody listen to me, an unbiased ear, not telling me what I should do, just educating me. As therapists, we don't tell people what to do. We educate. We educate people. We give them all the resources that they can to make the best decisions that will impact their life. Because ultimately, as a therapist, what we want to do is we don't want to see you for the rest of your life. Because if we are, we're not effectively doing our jobs. Our jobs as therapists is to get you to the point, whether it's emotional, social, whatever the case may be, get you to the point where you have progressed well enough that you can function at a high level on your own, and you don't need to see us. That's our job as therapists. And it's just a wonderful profession. And I'm so glad of late that as a whole, when I say as a whole, as a society and as a whole, that people are giving more understanding, respect, and the importance of mental health. Because I honestly believe, and this is a therapist in me, I honestly believe that every person that walks past me is going through something. It's going through something. I honestly believe it. Now, there are levels to it. Some may be higher, some may be lower, but I just believe that. So I understand the importance of therapy. I really do.
It's true indeed. I'm not sure where the quote originally comes from, but goes like this, where it says that be kind to everybody because everyone's going through an invisible battle.
That's it. And I read that quote before. That's it. And a lot of times, man, you'll never know it. And again, this is a therapist in me. Sometimes I literally am walking, in the streets, or I'm out, and somebody will walk past me, and I'll say, I wonder what they went through. I wonder what they had to go through the last year. I wonder what it was like for him or her to get up this morning and get to the point where I saw them. What stresses that they had to go through. Were they going through an abusive relationship? Are they going through substance abuse? Did they just get evicted last week? Did they lose their car? And I wonder these things. I really do, because I just honestly believe that people are going through so much. That's why, as you said, it is critical that you treat everybody with respect, because you never know what somebody else is going through. And as a therapist and as a speaker, and just as a person in general, that's why I love what I do, because I never know the impact of my words. Maybe I said something to a young person or an adult, and they may never come up to me and say, Mr. Mills, I felt that. But maybe it's the words that I say to them that's going to positively impact their lives, and I would never know about it. That's why I do what I do.
That's a beautiful thing right there. So speaking of impacting others with your words, are there any specific books that have just helped you to just charge forward and just keep going with the motivation and just being the Rashad Bowtie Mills that we all know and love?
Wow, that's a great question. And I read quite a bit. I don't think it's one book or book per se. And if I had to choose one book, I'm going to start with the greatest book. And this is my opinion, the greatest book ever written, the Bible. I mean, I find so much encouragement in the Bible. I really do, because there are times, again, even as a motivational speaker, there are things that I go through. But I just find so much encouragement in the Bible. So I guess that's my go-to, if you will. That's just my go-to. That keeps me going. That does. It really keeps me going. So I would just say the Bible.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you totally. The greatest book on earth. No other book on this planet has sold as much, translated as much, speaked on as much as the Bible itself. There are so many darn translations. There are so many different ways to purchase it.
I think that's just for me. That's everything. Like I said, it's just a source of encouragement. It could just be one verse. And the thing about the Bible that I love so much is you don't have to have the same beliefs as me. I mean, oftentimes what I do when I'm out speaking, I might have a Bible verse in my mind and I might incorporate it in a speech, but it doesn't come off as, Genesis 50:20. It's the same principle, but what I'm doing is I'm connecting it to that individual. And that's one of the things, Dom, as a motivational speaker that I really love is you can connect with a lot of people on different levels. So to give you a quick example, I was actually speaking to Morgan State University's football team this past Friday night, and a huge shout out to Coach Ferrier. He literally opened up his doors and welcomed me in and allowed me not to just speak to his guys, but to be a part of the Morgan State University football program, which was an incredible experience. But what happened, he had a theme for his team this year, and they were focusing on 10 steps. So guess what? What I did is I used my life experiences as an alcoholic, as an alcoholic, right? They have 12 steps. When you go to AA meetings, they teach you the 12 steps. So I incorporated the same principles in 12 steps, reverted it back to Morgan State football with 10 steps, and they understood the message. These young men have never been alcoholics. Hopefully they haven't been, and will never will be. Right? But I just took the message that was already there, for me, and just translated it. So, I mean, you don't have to, I always say, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So, again, going back to the original question, yes, the Bible. I could take, a verse and I could, say it to somebody that's 5 years old. But still, it positively impacts people across the board, regardless of race, age. The message is still there.
Yeah, definitely, because the Bible itself, it's a huge book, but there's a bunch of smaller books within it that just have so many stories, anecdotes, wisdom. It's just so much. I mean, if you want to get the nice quick story, you can go to Mark. If you want some daily wisdom, I mean, the whole book is good, but go to the book of Proverbs. I mean, there's just so much can gather. Heck, even go through the New Testament for some leadership notes from Paul when he was writing letters to some of his subordinates and his ministers out in the lands of Philippi and Corinthia. It's like there's like so much you can gather from that book. You don't have to necessarily believe in Christ itself to read the book, even though that's a plus. But still, just go to it and just dig from it and just draw from that well of words right there.
Well said.
So we're coming down the pikes. If you were 25 in 2017, what piece of advice would you give to yourself?
Ooh, wow. 25 in 2017. What piece of advice would I give to myself? That is an excellent question. And I would actually think like I'm thinking now, but at 25, I was still partying, having, way too much fun, but I would think the bigger picture. And when I say think the bigger picture, I would eliminate the party and the extracurricular stuff and spend every waking second of my life chasing my purpose and to continue to do it with passion. That's what I would tell myself at 25. I would spend every second of my life chasing my purpose and doing it with an incredible sense of passion. And then when I have established myself, I could do all the partying and not necessarily partying, but I could still do some of the things that make me happy, but I have to put my priorities first. When I was 25, I put all the partying first and all my priorities last. So, now at the age of 39, I'll actually be 40 in 13 days. I'm smart enough and wise enough, and God has allowed me to be around long enough to understand now I have to do a bigger mission. I'm living out my purpose, which I understand is helping people, and still doing it with passion. And all the back things, they'll come. Right now, I'm not worried about vacations or, relaxing. My foot is firmly planted to the pedal, and I'm not going to let up. I'm not going to let up.
That's what I'm talking about. I love what you said about chasing your purpose. I don't think I've actually heard those words combined together. They say try to find your purpose, but they never say chase it. I love it.
So, and the reason why I said that is you can find it, but because you find it, it doesn't mean that it will just be always at your front door when you open your door. It's not always going to be at your front door. You literally have to go out. And to give you a quick example of that, a very real example of that is the speaking opportunity that I had at Morgan State. My purpose is to speak and to help people and empower them. I didn't open up my door and the coach was standing at my door and saying, Rashad, I have a check for you. This is the date that I want you to be at Morgan. No, I had to actively chase that. When I say actively chase it, send a series of calls and send a series of emails and calls and follow-up calls. And eventually it came to fruition. So, and I mean that. Tonight I'll actually be going to Atlanta. My purpose is to speak. Yes, I'm chasing that. I enrolled myself in with a public speaking coach, a business coach, so I can take my brand to the next level to help more people. So I have to chase that. It's not going to be at my front door. I have to chase it.
That is true indeed, because folks always like to wait until everything's perfect, and then they just want to release it, and then it'll be too darn late because they haven't really beaten you to the punch when it comes to your own purpose, but at the same time, you probably wouldn't have the same amount of strength and energy you would as if you just released it earlier, like that book, that radio show, that podcast, like whatever it is, that project you've been waiting to release, that website you need to get done. Like, there's just so much out there, and you can just go on ahead and ship. Just learn to just ship out and just chase after your purpose. I love it. That should be like a chapter in your book or an actual book or something, man.
Chase your purpose. Yeah, and it's so real. It's so real. You gotta go get it. Trust me, it will not be sitting around.
Yeah, man, and if you want, you can maybe, has an idea for the book cover, you just have a rabbit wearing a t-shirt that says purpose, and you have the Elmer Fudd chasing it down. With a gun.
Right, with the shotgun. Yes. You rascally rabbit. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so for all the folks that don't want to get in contact with you and keep up with what you're doing, where can we find you?
Yes. You can absolutely find me on all forms of social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Actually, Facebook is Rashad Bowtie Mills. Rashad Bowtie Mills. Let me spell that. Rashad Bowtie. Bowtie. One word, Mills, Mills. You can find me on Instagram as Rashad, Rashad _Bowtie. Bowtie, one word, _Mills. And then on YouTube, Rashad Bowtie Mills. Visit my website, rashadmills.com. The website again is rashadmills.com. And if you want me to come to your school, your business to speak, please contact me at Rashad Speaks. Rashad Speaks at rashadmills.com. And I always have my little motto that I'm not only going to show up, I am going to show out. So you definitely, the people there, they won't leave the same way in which they came in.
That's what I'm talking about right there. And when you're speaking, Gary, you just need to bring a robe, man. Just throw it on you when it's done. Like, yeah.
James Brown.
Yep.
The Godfather. Okay. That would be interesting. I wonder how people would receive that. Oh man, the Godfather just spoke. Okay. You might have to try that, man. And play Play some James Brown music. So that should be interesting.
Well, alright, there you have it, folks. That's my man Rashad, Bowtie Mills. Go to his website, book him to speak. If you need a dynamite speaker at your next engagement, buy a bow tie 5 if you need something. Because if you need a nice bow tie and you like my man Bowtie's got you covered with the bow ties. And also, go ahead.
One quick thing. Let me just jump in here. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, on my website, rashadmills.com/shop. Get yourself a bow tie. Get yourself a bow tie as well. I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'll have a special for somebody. If somebody wants a bow tie and they contact me, if you listen to this podcast now and you want a bow tie, find me on social media. Tell me that you listen to this amazing podcast, and I will actually give you a reduced price on your bow tie just because you're supporting Dom and his bow tie. You're supporting me as well. So I will definitely do that for you.
Woohoo! There you have it, folks. There you have it. Heck, ladies, jump on that too. Bow ties are great. Bow ties are great. Thanks a bunch for your tuning ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to, once again, check out my book, Going North, on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. And if you'd like, feel free to follow me on social media at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at Dom Brightmon, YouTube at Dom Brightmon, and if you want to connect on LinkedIn as well, I am there at Dom Brightmon as well.